Once, many years ago, there dwelt a kingdom that had finally slipped from the long days of war into the sleepy twilight of peace. And within this kingdom there lived a soldier, a mercenary who fought not for glory nor coin nor honor, but simply for the love of battle itself. He was perhaps the only one angered at this newfound time of peace, and he traveled from land to land, from lord to lord, seeking any who would start a battle for him to participate in. But although he was offered a great many positions as soldier, as guard, as captain even, for he had never lost a fight, he would always turn these offers down and depart, saying that he had no desire to live in a land of peace. Well, because he was such a talented mercenary, he had a great lot of coins saved up, and it took a long time for his stores to run low until one warm spring night he found he could no longer afford to stay at the village inn, and instead laid to rest underneath a willow tree beside the river. And as he slept, he dreamed. He dreamed of a woman, tall and strong, with thick black hair that fell to her waist, skin the color of strong tea with just a touch of cream swirled in, and eyes the color of the sun. She stared at him impassively for a moment, and then she spoke to him in a voice tinged with a language that he had never heard before. "You are a soldier?" she asked. "I am," he answered. "Do you have need of my services?" "My people are in danger. We have been fighting for many months, and we need help. Can you help us?" "I can," he answered. "I've never lost a fight." "And what is your price?" the woman asked, and the man grinned. "Simply the promise of a battle and the promise of safe departure once it is won, for I have no desire to live in a land of peace." The woman frowned slightly. "It goes against the beliefs of my people to accept assistance from one as bloodthirsty as you, but we are desperate and I accept your terms." "How will I find you?" the man asked, and it was the woman's turn to smile. "When you wake, look to the reeds. A boat will be waiting there, and the water will take you to us." And she was gone. When the man woke the next morning, he had convinced himself it was nothing more than a dream until a passing glance to the water and the reeds therein did indeed find a boat waiting. Curious and eager for battle, he climbed aboard, and instantly the river whisked him downstream, faster and faster, up over the mountains, down into the valleys, until finally it spilled him out into the biggest sea he had ever seen. It was the ocean, although he did not know it, and he rose to swim to shore, but even before he finished standing, the water sped up, and the shore was gone, and he was forced to sit back down and wonder if he had lost his life and the possibility of any future battles to a slow starvation at sea. Well, the days slipped by, one after the next, and the man languished in the small boat in the middle of the open water. But before his hope could dissipate completely, he saw it. A mountain leading down to a smooth, sandy shore, and on that shore the woman from his dream waited, surrounded by her war-torn and weary villagers. They watched in silence as the water pushed the boat up onto the beach, and he got out and bowed low to her, and she returned the gesture. "The sun has just set," she said. "Come, let us plan." And so she took him into her counsel. The man learned that every morning when the sun rose up over the mountains, men would come down from those mountains. They would attack the villagers in their homes, burn the crops in the fields, steal whatever valuables they could find, and every night when the sun set low beneath the waves, those same men would recede back into the mountains where no amount of searching could draw them out. He learned that these men appeared to be controlled by a leader who commanded them not with words but with gestures, as though they were puppets to his every whim. Over and over the woman and her warriors had tried desperately to reach the leader of these mountain men, and over it seemed as though the sun would set just a bit too soon, and they would be forced to wait for another day, another battle, and another chance at peace. And so by night they planned, and by day they fought side by side, for the woman was every bit as strong and as able a warrior as he. But over time, no matter what strategies they employed, no matter what tactics they attempted, it always seemed as though the sun would set just a bit too soon. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, their nightly talks drifted from battle strategies and planning to lighter things and then to heavier things. It was on one of those nights, as they sat together watching the stars, that the woman pointed to one. "Do you see that star there?" she said. "When I was young it did not shine. It is a belief among my people that, if you are deemed worthy, you will return as a star in the night sky to watch over those you love. As my mother lay dying not many years ago, she pointed to a spot in the sky where no star shone, and she told me that if she was deemed worthy, that is where she would shine. And that night, as we laid her body to rest and celebrated her life, I watched that star appear. It gives me hope." Well, the man laughed, for he was a soldier, and soldiers do not have time for such superstitions, and their talk drifted away again. But over time, he found himself beginning to change. He found himself beginning to talk of staying on the island after the battle was won, about living his life in peace. And when the woman offered shyly to let him stay with her, he eagerly accepted. And so they planned their wedding for the night that the leader of the mountain men would finally be slain, and for the first time in his life he found himself looking forward to a time of peace. Well, the days slipped by and the battles wore on, and finally one bright summer's day they did it. The woman cried out a victory cry, her sword flashing in a deadly downward arc toward the leader of the mountain men. But before it could complete its descent, she cried out and cramped her stomach and crumpled to the ground. Immediately, the man who was of course beside her slew the leader of the mountain men, and instantly his soldiers receded back into the mountains, where they were never seen or heard from again. But the man did not notice, and he did not care. He fell to his knees beside the woman that he loved, and he gathered her close. "We did it," he said. "Come, let us get you to a healer. We can be married this very night and finally spend the rest of our lives in peace." But the woman just laughed weakly. "I have seen wounds like mine," she said. "I know I don't have much time left." And she pointed one weak, trembling finger just beyond his shoulder to a spot in the rapidly dawning night sky where no star shone. "If I am deemed worthy," she managed, "that is where I will shine." And she was gone. That night, the villagers celebrated her life as they had never celebrated a life before. They told the tales of her courage and her bravery and her heroism and her wisdom, and they laughed and they cried and they celebrated and they mourned, but the man did not notice and he did not care. He simply sat beside the grave of the woman that he loved, and he watched the sky, but no star appeared. And every night, from then on after, he would leave his home, that was once hers and should have been theirs, to sit beside her grave and watch the sky, and every night no star appeared. Well, the years wore on, as years tend to do, and he found himself becoming something of a leader within the village. He was loved by many and loved many in return. In many ways he led a rich, full life of happiness and joy and peace, and still, every night, he would leave his home, that was once hers and should have been theirs, to sit beside her grave and watch the sky, and every night no star appeared. Well, the years wore on, and the man grew older still. A cough settled into his lungs, his bones ached in the morning, and his hands, once strong, could no longer even lift the sword that he once wielded with such joy, and still, every night, he made the long, slow descent from his home, that was once hers and should have been theirs, to sit beside her grave and watch the sky, and every night no star appeared. And that is how they found him one morning, many, many years after the battle was won and peace achieved. Good years, strong years, happy years. And that night, as they laid his body to rest beside that of the woman that he loved, they celebrated his life every bit as much as they celebrated hers. They told the tales of his patience and his kindness and his clear-sightedness and his love for peace, and they laughed and they cried, and they celebrated and they mourned. And in the midst of this great revelry, A little girl looked up at the night sky, and she gasped, and she tugged on her brother's sleeve, and she pointed. For there, shining where no star had shone before, were two stars, so close together they were nearly one. And as her brother picked her up for a better look, he told her, she waited for him, so they could be together always. And they were.